Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic, welcome back. Right, before we talk about all the serious stuff we want to talk about, we wanted to sit you down and have a go at you, right? Because last time you were on the show, you talked about not eating meat.
Yes.
And you ruined our producer.
That's right.
He stopped eating meat.
Yes.
Right, we had to fire him. And he's not been the same since. We still employ him in a different capacity, but he can't be our producer anymore, basically.
It's a real shame. I remember that was when you were still filming out of the comedy club.
Yes.
Yes.
It's been quite a time since then.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I do occasionally. It's a little bit.
Is Alex vegan? No, Alex did identify as a vegan. And then he made a video about how he had IBS. And that had nothing to do with veganism, he even said. But somehow he was still going to stop being vegan because of IBS, even though he didn't even believe veganism was the cause. It was very confusing. And I saw this coming for, like, I'm not very good at predicting things, right? But I saw it coming and everyone was mad at me. And then suddenly he was like, not vegan. It was very weird. Hi, Andrew. Yeah.
Awkward. Of course, I had to do a sort of big, serious YouTube moment of saying that I'd not just changed my mind, but changed my lifestyle. And I occasionally get people coming up to me. I was at a sort of club, party, rave type thing, and someone came up to me, held up their Instagram on their phone, and they went, "Is this you?" And I went, "Yeah." And they went, "Whoa, I'm vegan too." And I sort of had to, in that moment, usually when that happens these days, I have to have this sort of conversation where I say, well, listen, thank you so much. I really appreciate that you listen to what I'm saying and that it's affected you, but you should know that I made this announcement, I'm not vegan anymore. But in that moment, I just sort of had to go, you know, that was all I could muster.
I really can't imagine you at a rave.
Yeah, I mean, I
Do you keep your blazer on when you're at the rave, Alex?
you know, Chris always has a go at me for this. He always likes to tell the story of when I showed up for a boat party that he'd organised in a suit, because I'm sort of trying to live out the philosophy that there's no situation where you can't wear a jacket. Which I think is...
No, you're going to rapidly discover that's not true.
I woke up like this, you know. I actually sleep with the bow tie on, but I sort of take it off.
Take it off. You dress down.
Does he talk about veganism anymore?
For us.
Yeah.
But anyway, so so you ruined our producer. He didn't eat meat for a while, right? It was tense. It was difficult. We've got him sorted out now. He's all right. He's got a girlfriend now. He makes him eat meat, so it's all good, right? However, you stopped eating meat. You started eating. You stopped eating meat, and then you started eating meat.
Yes, I mean, look, it's one of the most sort of significant things that's happened in my channel's history, and it's an awkward terrain to navigate, because you want to be open and you want to keep people sort of informed with what you're doing, but at the same time, I didn't want to become in any way like an anti-vegan type guy. There's a bit of a pipeline that sometimes occurs when somebody isn't vegan anymore.
It really doesn't matter whether or not someone's anti-vegan. It's more whether or not they're anti-animal. And I'd say it's anti-animal to pay for them to be stabbed and exploited and killed. Like, that's the main thing. Like, it's not you coming across as an anti-vegan that's the problem. It's you saying, look, this isn't important enough to me, or I don't see this as enough of an issue to, like, just change my habits and keep my habits as they are. For this ethical issue, you know?
Especially if their entire thing has been veganism, you know, there's this perception amongst vegans that people like to cash in on it, and that suddenly you're going on trigonometry and talking about how you're no longer a vegan. And the last thing I wanted and want to do is that, because I still think that factory farming in particular is perhaps the greatest moral emergency that we're facing.
Veganism isn't about factory farming, though. Veganism is about animal exploitation, animal killing. Like, it's not just like factory farm. It's not just like cruelty and stuff like that. It's more like considering their liberation. So, I don't know why you think that makes you like not. I don't know why you think that does anything. I'm confused by that.
Everything that I've ever said about factory farming, I stand by, and I think it's still true. And I still think I know that, I don't know if you still do this, but you like to
Yeah,
ask.
but this was the problem. He did talk about factory farming a lot. And I was a bit like, you know, very weird.
Ask your guests what people aren't talking about but should be talking about. And I still think that factory farming has to be the answer to that question. I mean, you've had some interesting answers to that. You know, people have, I actually really liked Peter Hitchens' answer about cars and how they've come to dominate modern cities. That's fascinating because, you know, that's something that people don't tend to notice. But something like factory farming generally doesn't even enter into the equation. If you ask people, you know, the moral or political issues that they care about on the street, they'd name 100 before they got to anything involving the plight of animals. And that's because I guess it's, at the moment at least, seen as a strictly moral issue rather than a political one.
Well, the thing is, I don't know that it is, because I actually think it's a market problem that can be solved with the market. Like, I am as concerned about factory farming, probably not quite as much as you are, but I don't like it. I think it's wrong. And I try to buy meat that isn't sourced in that way.
What makes it okay when it's not factory farmed? In what realm is it like, oh no, factory farming these animals is like terrible, but breeding them into existence with the purpose of still using them, commodifying them, and then killing them, that's fine. In what world?
UK actually quite difficult. In America, not that difficult. You can order stuff very, very easily from all sorts of different suppliers. But I think if there was a company in this country that wanted to mass sell grass-fed, organically bred, free-range, whatever meat, there'd be a big demand for it, and people would pay a lot more than they're paying in the supermarket.
If you're mass selling it, it's just going to become factory farming again, isn't it? And again, what does it matter if they're grass-fed? They're still getting a bolt gun in the head, or they're still getting their throat slit. I don't understand.
Get for it.
I think that's true of people who are in a position to pay more money.
Yeah.
It's certainly the case that people are moralized into spending more money in a great many areas. It happens all the time with environmentally friendly goods, for example. People are happy to pay more. But if
Wasn't it a convenience excuse for Alex at the end of the day? Surely finding high welfare stuff is less convenient than just being vegan. Yeah, because where are you going to actually find that high welfare stuff? Like, you're going to go leaps and bounds. You're going to have to go to a different universe, actually, to find somewhere that's been so high welfare when the animal's throat's been slit, or they've been gassed, or they've been bolt gunned in the head. Like, how is that even high welfare anyway? I don't understand how that makes sense.
If you can't afford, if you don't have the money, if you're struggling to eat any food, let alone, you know, quality sourced meat, then of course you're going to buy the cheapest thing in the supermarket. So
yeah, the cheapest stuff is going to be the plant-based stuff anyway.
I understand that position, but I have to say that I've grown a lot more convinced that the way to solve this problem has to be top-down regulation. I mean, it's all well and good saying we're going to, you know, boycott animal products, and, you know, great, awesome.
I wish they would have this conversation in a slaughterhouse. Yeah. They would look pretty silly, wouldn't they? Saying, well, this stuff is okay. You know, I'd pay high premium money for this. Oh, have you seen Okja? Yeah, I've seen Okja. Amazing. Yeah, it is, Bertie.
You know, boycott factory farming, why not? But with I don't know, like, veganism can grow, but meat consumption can grow at the same time. Like, it's great. Like, there are less people eating these products and buying.
Well, yeah, because of like things like population, or like modernization, or affluence, you know, shifting in different countries.
These products than otherwise would be. But the industry is still massive, and I don't think it's going to go away just because people are making different purchasing decisions. That has a huge effect.
Why do people deny supply and demand? I think it has a huge effect. Okay, hang on. Let me let him finish. Sorry.
People eating these products and buying these products than otherwise would be. But the industry is still massive, and I don't think it's going to go away just because people are making different purchasing decisions. That has a
No one's saying it's just going to go away if people like stop buying it. That will be the only factor. Obviously, there's going to be like legislation. There's going to be like lifestyle differences. Like, it's not just, you know, purchasing animals that the commodification happens. It's not just that causes the commodification. So vegans are talking about more than just, oh, you don't buy flesh anymore. Like, there's a lot of other things you just don't buy anymore, like the animal tested ingredients, you know, the levers, the furs, the things like that. And you don't go out hunting and, you know, finding a rabbit and hunting them, and that's not buying animal products, is it? What are you talking about?
A huge effect, but that can't be the only way to solve this problem.
Who says veganism says that's the only way? I don't understand. Especially
because if it's the case that people aren't going to be vegan.
I'd love to talk to this guy and be like, what the actual hell? Like, I'd be like, level with me, posh boy. What the actual fuck? I'd put on, you know, a posh accent, actually. I'd pretend I'm one of him. I'd be like, darling, listen to me, darling. Don't you think it's absolutely ridiculous that you sit here and you say things about veganism that just actually aren't even the case? Like, in what fucking realm, sorry, pardon my French, oh, sorry, France, you know, the place where, you know, there's no vegan options at all, you know, no vegan options in France, so pardon my French, sorry, I know that's a triggering thing for you. But in what realm are vegans just saying that it's just stopping buying things? You know, in what realm? You know, because we're avoiding the exploitation and the killing. And there's going to be more elsewhere, isn't there, darling? Yes, darling. There absolutely is. So what the fucking Jimmy are you going on about?
Right. Because the vegan movement says the problem is just that
I just want to know what legislation he's proposing. The same legislation that would stop him doing the things he's suddenly doing.
Don't have enough people on board yet, and one day there's going to be a critical mass, and then suddenly everyone's going to be vegan, and we won't even need to worry about regulation of the animal, you know, farming industry, because it just won't exist anymore. I'm not so optimistic that that's the case. However, what that means, or I shouldn't say however, what that means is that we're going to need to solve the problem in another way, and I think that has to be top-down regulation. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think that's...
Why can't you do both? He's not brave enough to talk to me. Let's be honest, I'm just a bit irrelevant, so he's not even going to know who I am, but damn.
France, I know you want to jump in, but since we're on this, you top-down regulation, you're going to make meat very, very expensive. That's what's going to happen.
Perhaps. Yes. I mean...
It's not perhaps, yes, you are.
There may be...
I feel like he doesn't know what he even wants it to be.
Ways that we can solve that problem through subsidies, but also maybe the answer is to say, yes, it's going to be more expensive and people are already eating too much in the way of animal products and just need to be eating less. I don't know.
What do you mean less? Is it wrong or not, mate? So why would it be less?
No. Yeah. That's when you start getting into sort of, you know, governmental...
Yeah, if the government represents the people should probably be convinced. And they'll be very much convinced if they're not even paying for it in the first place. Yeah, okay.
Telling people what they're allowed to eat, but I don't think it's quite the same. You know, you have this image in your head of the government coming in and saying you're not allowed to eat red meat. I think that is different in principle to the government introducing legislations based on moral principles about the treatment of animals and animal cruelty that make it such that some products are more expensive, so people have to eat less.
Well, that's the thing. If you make something more expensive, you are actually saying you can't have this to a lot of people. So you are just saying that. Hello, Amber! You are just saying that. Just own it. Like, you can't have that because you won't be able to afford it. And yeah, you want them more expensive, or at the very least, I would say just ban them. Just get rid of them. But more realistically, what will probably happen is they will be made more expensive, which is in a way saying some people can't have this because you won't even be able to afford it. So good luck.
I understand that feels like the government is coming along and saying you're not allowed to eat meat, but that's not what it's doing. It's saying...
That sounds really, like, privileged. If the government come along and make something really expensive, they are, in effect, saying, you can't have this, poor person. Like, are they not?
Saying, look, yeah, a lot of the products that we consume in this country would be made a lot more cheaply if we just got rid of health and safety regulations in our factories, for example. They'd be so much cheaper, right? But the fact that the government is saying, your jacket is going to be more expensive if you buy it from a UK source because the people working in those factories are sort of beholden, or the people organising the workers are beholden to certain regulatory practices.
Yeah, I agree. Just ban them. Just ban the fucking things. They're terrible for everyone.
That's not the government coming in and saying you're not allowed to, wear a nice suit. It may be that the suit is more expensive, and that's kind of the government's fault. But what the government's doing there is prioritising the well-being of workers over, a cheap suit. And I suppose in this instance, what the government will be doing is prioritising the well-being of animals over a cheap meal. That is, as long as cheap meals are still available for those who need them.
I'm actually quite convinced by your argument, purely because the British love animals so much and they care so desperately about their welfare that actually I think if someone came along to make that argument in a coherent fashion, I actually think a lot of people in this country would be okay with that.
Yeah, well, people in this country love pets. To say that they love animals, I mean, I should be fair, most people maybe don't quite know what's going on in factory farmings, or they do.
Well, some people are even worse, Alex. Some people know and then they just keep paying for it. Do you know anyone who fits that description?
But they figure, well, someone's surely doing something about it. It's not exactly their fault. But I mean, for example, the RSPCA, I've always talked about how
Imagine saying this shit and then not even being vegan. This is really cringe.
The RSPCA will be looked back upon with sort of probably ridicule in the sense that you have
just like you will be. Just so you know.
A Royal Society for the Protection of Animals that's just totally fine with some of the most abominable practices imaginable.
And you're totally fine with it as well. You pay for it. You pay for it. Directly. You are part of the supply, the demand. Therefore, you are part of the supply, i.e. the throat slitting, the gassing, the bolt gunning, the things that you are saying are horrific. God, this guy triggers the fuck out of me. Oh my God. There's more, but I don't know if I have the strength. There's a whole animal welfare issues section. I don't know if I can do it. Fuck it. You love being pain.
The pig industry is the worst. I think pigs get the worst of it. If you're a piglet that's too sick to be profitable, if you're not going to make any money, if you're not going to make it into adulthood, then you're killed. And the way this is done, colloquially,
this happens to the same happens to animals who you pay for the flesh of now.
known as thumping, blunt force trauma. They're taken by their hind legs and they're smashed into the concrete in the skull until they die. There was a high welfare farm, I think I know where, but I won't say just in case I get it wrong, that was discovered, a so-called high welfare farm that was discovered to be thumping piglets to death by smashing their skulls against the cages that their own mothers were being kept in. Right? This is a horrible practice. Now, thumping as a practice is officially approved by the RSPCA as a way of euthanizing these pigs. Now, do you remember when...
This is all happening to these animals, like, that you pay for now. This is just pissing me off. It blows my mind that a person who is so passionate about veganism is now paying for animals to be exploited and murdered. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, which is, thank you, Leon, standard practice that you're paying for. That you said, oh, I'm going to go back to doing that because of an issue that's got nothing to do with veganism. That's how little it matters. There was no compelling justification for me to suddenly go back to doing this. And he was like, oh, I'm convinced that this doesn't have any impact, but he hasn't demonstrated that in any way whatsoever. In fact, there's an awesome paper called Against Inefficacy Objections, which goes through like this idea that, oh, like I don't make a difference if I'm making a purchase. And it shows threshold purchases and how you could actually be responsible for more killing than you thought you were originally.
And Kurt Zuma, the West Ham footballer,
Yes.
was caught on Snapchat kicking his, I say caught, somebody posted a video of him kicking his cat across the...
I think he actually uploaded it himself.
Yeah, I think he might have done it.
Yeah.
An extraordinary event, but also, you know, it's almost like he was doing a social experiment because the RSPCA eventually confiscated that cat. The same RSPCA that's fine with taking piglets by the hind legs and smashing their skulls into the concrete because they're not going to make enough money, and if they were going to make enough money, would be killed most likely in a gas chamber, choking on their own breath. But you kick your cat across the kitchen, and not only do you get a media furore, I think even the mayor of London was on Good Morning Britain or something, condemning Kurt Zuma. And
Well,
the
the mayor
RS
of London, virtue signalling. No.
Can you believe it?
No.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
And the RSPCA took away the cat. The same RSPCA that's totally fine with. I just think
Yeah,
that
thank you, Christina. Dude, are you hearing yourself?
there is, shall we say, an element of cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
We should end it there, shouldn't we? I feel like that is the perfect place to end it.